Hi and welcome back to Garden Ninja for the October garden tour. Now I've had an incredibly busy couple of months, and if you've followed me on social media like Instagram, you'll have seen that I've been touring around Europe in a motorhome for 5 whole weeks, and I've got so much inspiration for garden design and gardening from around Europe, and it was a really brilliant holiday and a time for me to recharge my batteries. But I'm back now with a bang, and I'm here at Garden Ninja HQ, and this video is going to show you exactly what I'm doing in the month of October and then throughout the winter. So come on, let's get cracking. If you've not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you hit the red subscribe button below, where you'll get access to over 120 garden design hints, tips and hacks, and best of all, it's free, so subscribe today. Now October has been a complete washout. It's rained pretty much non-stop here in the northwest of the UK, and I got back about 3 weeks ago and the ground is just sodden. You can feel it as you walk on it. It's squishy, and I don't like really doing too much gardening in the ground when it's this wet because it damages the soil, it makes you all muddy, it's unpleasant, and I think you can do more harm than good. However, there are a few jobs I have to do this month, and one of them is to tame a rambling rose. So let me show you that now. Now you may remember that last year I was pruning this scrambling rose here because it was in a bad way, it was all tangled and it pretty much stopped flowering. However, this year, because of the hard prune that I gave it, it's gone bonkers. Got loads of this long lengthy growth. But what I need to do is to tie it up to the pergola above, because at the moment it's fallen down, it's been really windy, and if I don't deal with it now, it's going to get damaged and all that hard work is going to be undone. Now when it comes to pruning roses, it can be a bit of a thorny issue, especially with the ramblers that have loads of those sharp thorns along the stems. So I tend to use gauntlets, and this is a pair here, and they come all the way up to the arm there. What you don't want is small, thin latex gloves that the thorns are going to go through. It just makes it really uncomfortable. So I'm going to pop these on, and you'll see just how well they protect your arms. If I was really clever, I'd be wearing a long sleeve jumper or coat, but I'm not that clever. But these should stop most of the scratches. I'm also going to be using a really sharp pair of secateurs just to cut off some of that growth. But I'm going to show you that after I've tied it up. What I'm doing here is I'm just putting in a provisional tie. So this is just to take the strain. So I'm putting this one in first at the very end, just to get it up there, and then I can deal with all this in a minute. So I'm just going to put that in a big loopy bow. And it's about taking your time with this. You don't want to strangle the rose. Right, you see this bit here? We want to kind of take that across to the next strut. We don't want it all on this one. We want to try and sort of splay it out a bit, almost like a palm going across these joists. Now I told you I was going to do some pruning, and this is a really good example. You can see down here we've got this massive side shoot. It's growing humongous, look at that. Now further up it's thick, green, looks healthy, and as we get further along it gets more spindly. Now what I want to do is to maybe cut that maybe in half to here, and then tie this latter part up so that all the energy is forced further back down this stem for side shoots and flowers. If I just tied that up, it's going to keep going for gold. I'm probably not going to get as many flowers, and I'm going to have to prune it next year anyway, so I might as well do it now before I tie it up. So if you've got really long side shoots like this, take a third off them at least before you tie them back up. So I'm probably going to cut just above that node there, and then tie that bit up. Now you should be able to see we've got one tie there, one tie there, one tie there, and you'll notice that the scrambling rose now is coming up to about here. I've cut them off, chop, chop, so that all this side growth can come out next year. I don't want to take them all the way to the end because they're just going to get into the gutters and be really thin and lanky. So I think that's a really neat way to get your scrambling roses into position. Obviously there's other things growing through, like the clematis salmandi, we've got a wisteria that I need to do something with a bit later on in the month, but it's a neat way to get your scrambling roses into a really good shape for next year. So it is time consuming pruning properly, but it's worthwhile, because if I've spent 2 hours on this today, then next year it's going to look even better. It's going to save me more pruning in the future. So rather than the hack and slash method or the let's just ignore it and hope for the best, plan your pruning and give it some time. It's really enjoyable, and I enjoy just picking away around this rambling rose, taking off anything that's in the wrong place, and training those main leaders in the direction I need them to go. So it's been an interesting month for the Wildflower Meadow, and if you've followed that series of guides, you'll know that we mow Wildflower Meadows usually 3 times a year. If I do a spin around now, that was the meadow. Now I mowed it about 2 weeks ago. I used a mix of a strimmer and a mower, and I collected all of the clippings. It was a bit of a mish because it's a big space. Now it still needs its final mow, which usually is at the end of October, but it's just too wet. If you follow me down here, you'll see this, which is the Gilder rose, which is a form of viburnum native here to the UK. Now it's only been in, what, 2 years? It's already starting to put on lots of woody, sort of shrubby growth. And I've got these markers all dotted around the meadow for where these specimens are. And as they get bigger, they're going to act as a punctuation throughout the meadow. Now I'm going to show you a few of the trees as well that are doing really well. So I thought this red alder had actually died. I planted these all as bare roots, but given the awful winters we had, I thought it may have drowned because it got so wet. But look at it now. It's really put on loads of growth. You can see the stake next to it for a bit of context of height, but red alders are brilliant because they rapidly absorb carbon, which with our climate change emergency is really important. So fast growing trees like these red alders are brilliant if you're trying to bulk up your gardens and you also want to capture loads of carbon, which is then stored in all this wood for years and years to come. So they're a really smart choice. There's another tree I need to show you as well. Now this tree next to me is a real beauty. Just take a look at how tall it is. It's outgrown its stake, and I do need to reposition it because it is leaning. But anyway, this is a European larch, and it's a really interesting tree specimen because it's one of the only deciduous conifers, so it will drop all of its needles in the winter. Now the brilliant thing with European larch is it's super fast growing. And you just look at that, it went in as a bare root twig 2 years ago, and now you've got pretty much a small tree growing here. It also provides a wonderful habitat for species such as moths, squirrels and birds. It's another one that's going to capture loads of carbon. I've got 3 in this garden. And given that they can live up to 250 years, I really am planting trees for the future. So it's that time of year when all of the deciduous trees are shedding the leaves, and you may feel totally overwhelmed if you've got trees in your garden there's just leaves everywhere. But I would urge you not to panic too much. I tend to only clear the leaves away from paths and driveways. I actually leave them in the borders for the next month or 2 because they act as a really great habitat for wildlife. They also have loads of microorganisms that help break down into the soil. If you do collect your leaves though, you can make leaf mould, and it's super easy. So check out my leaf mould guide on my YouTube channel to show you how to do that. And even if you've only got a bin bag, you can still do it, stick it behind a shed, and you'll have some beautiful leaf mould in about 6 to 12 months' time. Right, so it's far too wet and cold to stay outside, so let's go inside because we've got a viewers' question special this month, and I've had some really interesting questions from you, the Garden Ninja community. Let's get a brew. So the first question is from Peter Duff, and he's asking about a metal pergola that he's put over loads of cottage plants such as sweet peas and a clematis. And he wants to know when is the best time to split or to move some of these plants to better positions. He's also given me some location information in that he's based in Fife in Scotland, and I know that they suffer from strong winds and early frosts in autumn. So Peter, my advice to you would be to wait until spring next year. Whilst you can divide plants in the UK in autumn by lifting them and splitting them, if you're going to have frost, such as in Fife, or that coastal wind, what may happen is as you split them and replant them, they may then get frostbitten, and you really don't want to be doing anything with plants when there's a chance of frost. So Peter, I would wait till spring. And if you want to know how to split your plants, you've guessed it, I've got 2 video guides on my YouTube channel which will show you, Peter, exactly how to do this. But make sure you get back in touch once you've done it and let me know how you've got on. Now we've got a really interesting question all the way from Israel, from Paula, one of the garden ninjas, and she's been growing roses in really hot, arid conditions. And in her question, she mentions that she's easily hitting 30 degrees C. Now with roses, they don't mind sun, but they actually do prefer a little bit of dappled shade. And I think the problem, Paula, is that because you're not getting much rain and your roses are getting scorched, it's kind of giving them a real battering. But what I would recommend, Paula, is that obviously you try and keep them hydrated in those really hot months. But when it comes to pruning, you want to prune off anything that's become totally scorched. If you've had roses that haven't flowered because they've been under stress, it may be worthwhile positioning them somewhere else or providing a bit of shade for them, because they're really not going to survive in total arid conditions. However, saying that, they are super tough, so it might just be a case of pruning off some of that damaged material, and then next spring, when winter's finished, just before the buds burst, following my rose pruning guide to get them back into a neat shape. Another good tip is to use lots of thick mulch around the base of the roses. So even if you're getting those 30-degree summer days, if you can keep 1 inch or 2 of really decent compost or even leaf mould or leaves as a mulch around the base, it will help keep some of that moisture in. And I'm sure you're going to end up with loads of beautiful roses if you just follow those few simple tips. RB Nutwood has asked a really interesting question about pruning mallow and when to do that. Now mallow is also known as Lavateria. It's probably what you best know it as. Now mallow is from the family Malvaceae, and you'll notice that when I did my wildflower meadow, I included different types of malva, which is from the same mallow family, and they have these really distinctive pink flowers. Now, the slight niggle with Lavateria is they actually don't live very long. They live for about 5 years. So RB Nutwood, I would say it depends on how old your Lavateria is. I've got one in the garden that's about 8 years, still going but not quite as vigorous. But the best time to prune your Lavateria is springtime. I wouldn't do anything with it now as we move into winter, unless you see anything damaged. Any damaged material, just take that back to the next set of green buds, and that shouldn't damage next year's flowers. But in the spring, prune it back by maybe 1/4, and then you'll see those little buds on the side will start to burst open in summer, and then you'll get those beautiful pink flowers. If your Lavateria, like mine, is coming to the end of its life, what you may want to do is try and collect some seed and then propagate it so you get more. Lavateria are beautiful because they get really tall, and you kind of expect them to live forever, but they don't. However, if you propagate them, you can keep that plant going year after year. And if you need to know how you can sow those seeds, make sure you check out my seed sowing guide on YouTube, which will give you all the details you need. Now the next question is rather tropical, and it's from Karen. And she's put, I live in South Essex and have gardens in lots of pots. My bougainvillea has been lovely, but I know I need to bring it indoors. When should I prune it back? Now bougainvillea is a beautiful plant that you'll often see in places like Greece, or if you've ever been on holiday in Morocco or Mexico, and it's used as kind of a hedge and a screen, and it has these beautiful coloured bracts. Now people often mistake the bracts for a flower, but it's actually a bract that encompasses the flower inside. But you'll notice them because they're usually bright pink or fuchsia coloured. Now because they're slightly tropical, they are tender, so they don't want to be in any temperature here in the UK under 10 degrees. So most of our winters are going to have frost, so you're right in bringing it inside, Karen. And you need to keep those bougainvilleas safe inside or in a greenhouse that doesn't drop below 10 degrees. And that's why a lot of people with bougainvillea plant them in pots as you've done yourself so that you can move them in and out. Now the best time to prune a bougainvillea is spring. I would leave it alone now. Unless there's any damaged material on it or anything that's looking a bit weak, I would bring it in, keep it relatively moist throughout the winter, water it once a week, but then prune it in spring. And all you want to do is give it a light haircut just to tidy it up and to encourage some side shoots. But other than that, it sounds like, Karen, you're pretty much on the right track. Now the next question is from Danai, and she said that she's got a cold frame and she's grown some foxgloves ready for next year. She wants to know, can I put a transparent plastic bin or cloche over them for the winter, or would it be better to plant them in the landscape now? And tonight, that's a great question. The first thing to note is that foxgloves are biennials, and what that means is that they put on leafy growth in year 1, which is probably what you're seeing now, Denai, and then they flower in year 2. So if you've grown them this year, you'll get the leafy growth, and then next year you'll get the flowers. Ideally, you want to get the leafy growth in the ground in year 1. You don't want to transplant them next year and then expect them to flower as well, because it puts a plant under a lot of stress. So I wouldn't cover it in a cloche, I wouldn't put it in your cold frame. I would get them into the ground now as quickly as you can, and then they get established slowly over autumn and winter, and then next year they're ready to flower. Have you got gardening questions that you need answers for? Well, why not head over to the Garden Ninja forum on my blog, where you can ask me anything about gardens, plants and garden design. There's a whole army of other garden ninjas there that can help provide answers to your questions. It's a really great way to meet the other ninjas, so head over there now. So that brings us neatly to the end of the October tour. If you've liked this video, please make sure you subscribe by hitting subscribe below and hit the bell for notifications. If you know of other gardeners that are struggling, send them my way so we can help them with the Garden Ninja army. And lastly, why not check out my social media, where there are loads more garden design, hints, tips and hacks to help you make your garden awesome. I've been Garden Ninja, I'm off inside to stay warm. Happy gardening.